Well, you know what sound that means, folks. Yes, we're off to another ElkWorks Noon Whistle. I'm Chris Trottier.
And I'm John Anzalone. And with us today, we have 1997 graduate Bridget Seegers. Welcome, Bridget.
Hey, thank you. Great to be here.
All the way from California, right?
Woo.
Yep, San Diego. Gray,
Nice.
rainy day.
Well, thanks for taking time with us. And we can't wait to get going. Currently, you work for NASA, correct?
That's right. Yep, I'm a research scientist there in their ocean ecology lab.
Okay.
Yeah.
Before we get to that stuff and where you're at now, maybe just talk to us a little bit about kind of how your journey from Elkhorn started. What do you recall about being an Elkhorn student and resident?
Yeah, I mean, the memories from Elkhorn are fantastic. It was, it's a nice, supportive town, and so many opportunities were presented to me as a student there. So, I mean, I was really involved in athletics, and that was like to be from a town from Elkhorn and to be involved in athletics was really great. We were able to win a state championship, so to have that type of support from the town, we couldn't have done it alone without all of Elkhorn behind us. So that was really great. But beyond that, it was also a great education. I learned a lot about critical thinking, asking questions, and being curious. And from Elkhorn, then I went on to college in Minnesota at a little school called Northfield. I was kind of a shy kid, so the idea of being in a really, really large university was incredibly intimidating. It took me like 4 years to raise my hand and like make a comment in class. So I needed those smaller classrooms, but continued to learn and ask questions. And
well, you're probably being pretty modest though, like when you talk about Elkhorn, because thinking back and knowing you then and looking at like past yearbooks, you were a 3-sport athlete. So you won the state basketball championship your senior year, the conference soccer championship your senior year. You were involved in student council, National Honor Society, German club. I'm sure I've missed some, but you took full advantage of your opportunities. Is that correct?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think one thing I've never really known is what I wanted to do. So I tried to do a little bit of everything. So, I mean, I enjoyed athletics. I love just running around. I'm not very good at sitting still. So that was good. But yeah, like the German club or student council, just, being engaged with what's happening in the school and wanting to make it a good place. And like, how can we be involved to inspire kind of changes or what you want to see happening on the ground. So wanted to do that. National Honor Society. I mean, people were like, just do it. So I did.
Yeah.
I loved that band was another thing I really enjoyed. I got to be in the pep band and marching band and things like that. So that was another, great opportunity. But yeah, I mean, it was just in some ways maybe a lack of focus. But yeah, there's a lot of great things to say yes to. So.
But that's kind of the ideas, right? The experiences are there, the options are there, and then you go from there, picking and choosing and giving it all a try.
Yeah, you never know until you try. So
along the way with all your experiences and the many teachers you had, who along the way like kind of sticks out to you like that was someone that was inspiring to me or mentored me?
Yeah, I mean, for me, every day, like going and sitting in a classroom was a chance to learn something. So I was excited to sit in most of the classrooms, but a few that really stand out is Mr. Sadler, Ed Sadler, who taught my chemistry and physics. And one of the things he said was the more you learn, the dumber you get, because you realize how little you know. And I think that's been really important. I quote that so often is that, you have to ask questions. And even sometimes when you ask questions and you learn new information, you feel like you know less because suddenly you've realized there's a gap in like your understanding or your view of the world. And so like, I feel like Mr. Sadler has always been in my head, just like ask more questions. And sometimes it's going to make you feel maybe dumber or humble or things like that. But it's been really important. But when I started, now I'm a scientist, but when I started college, I thought I wanted to be an English teacher. So Pat Rosinski and Lisa Detman, they're some of my English teachers in high school. And, just created a love for reading and discussions and trying to understand the world from other people's points of view. So, there's so many great things. And then of course the coaches and Jim Henriott, who just like made us believe anything's possible. Like just work hard and prep and get ready and whatever, you got a shot at it, we'll give it a go. So yeah, there's been a lot of nice supportive people from Elkhorn.
So Bridget, so I'm just, as I'm sitting here processing what you just said, how did you go from that small university town to the West Coast and working for NASA? Like, what did that journey look like?
Yeah, it's a long and winding road for sure. So I went to school. Yeah, I went to school in a little town in Minnesota, and then I actually spent 3 years teaching in northern Minnesota at an outdoor school. So I lived 10 miles from a town of 200 in the middle of 5,000 acres. And all of our classes were outdoors and a lot of hands-on stuff, which was wonderful. I loved being outside every day and kind of learning skills as a naturalist and noticing like this flower wasn't here yesterday, but now it's here today, and appreciating those tiny changes in the day-to-day. And I was actually thinking about, buying a little cabin up there and just staying in this little town in northern Minnesota. And then one day, I woke up and I was like, I've never lived in a city. And once when I played college basketball, we went to Boston, and that seemed neat. So I'm going to go live in Boston. So I applied for a AmeriCorps position, which is kind of like a domestic Peace Corps. So I applied for a position in Boston. It's like a 1-year commitment. And I was going to teach in some schools in the city of Boston. So I just packed up and moved out to Boston. I never lived in a city before, and spent a year teaching.
Wow.
The city was so exciting. I just loved all the opportunities and the music and everything. And then from there, I did that for a year. Then I took a job teaching in San Diego because my brothers were here. So I moved out and taught.
What were you teaching, by the way?
In San Diego?
Or Boston or San Diego?
Yeah, Boston, I was working at a nonprofit called the Urban Ecology Institute. So I went into mostly junior high classrooms and talked about the biodiversity or the types of plants and animals living in the city. And we would set up little experiments for the kids to do outdoors and learn about, the nature around them in the city. So that's what I did there. In San Diego, I worked at a charter school, and so I taught all the subjects. And then I got a job at the aquarium, actually. So then I did a lot of fish dissections.
So how did we go from plants to NASA?
Great question. Yeah. So when I was
a windy road for sure.
I told you, this is I never know what I want to do, so I say yes. When I was in San Diego, I volunteered for a week on a research cruise. So the scientists, go out on the ocean, they live on these big research ships, and you take samples. So I had volunteered, and then summer came, and I was going to work at a summer camp. And there was a big research vessel going to the Southern Ocean around Antarctica for 42 days. And the week before they left, a technician broke their leg. Oh. And so they needed someone to fill in the spot. And so since I had volunteered, they came and asked, hey, do you want to be a technician for the summer? Since I was a teacher, I was, free. The summer camp was yes, go to Antarctica. That's amazing. Go get on that boat. So I did. And then while I was doing the technician job that summer, the professor I was working for said, hey, you have some neat ideas, and no one's going to listen to you unless you get another degree. So why don't you go back to grad school? You'll enjoy the challenge. And so the next year I did. And then I started down science path. And I stayed in oceanography. And one of the cool things that you can do with oceanography, since it's massive and it's really hard to get your little boats all over the place, is NASA has actually put, satellites out in space to study the ocean because it's such an important thing. And one of NASA's original goals was to study planet Earth from space. So we always think of NASA as looking out, but actually there's a lot of satellites looking back at the Earth. So that's the type of data that I've been using now.
Wow.
So is that pretty much what you've done since you've been with NASA then, is the oceanography or ocean study of the ocean?
Yeah, so I am focused on water quality. And currently, though, I'm actually doing freshwater. So we're trying to use the satellites to study lake water quality. So, growing up in Wisconsin, water quality in the lakes is something very important to me. So we're using the satellites to monitor for toxic blooms of algae, kind of that green slime.
Okay. Yeah. Can you tell us anything about the lakes around here? Lake Geneva, Lauderdale Lake, Delvin Lake? How are we doing?
Yeah, you can definitely tell you a little bit. So Como Lake's a little bit greener than some of the other lakes.
Okay.
Lake Geneva, great water quality. Delvin's pretty good, but there's some hot spots. Lauderdale's kind of a weird shape, so it's hard for the satellites to get a good image of it because the pixel,
Okay.
you need a little wider body of water. But yeah.
Yeah. Well, so talking about lakes, the famous Elkhorn Lake, do you study that at all that we have here?
No, I think the size is a little too small. Famous indeed, but a little too small for our satellites to see it.
Well, and you forgot to say you have your doctorate. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that was between the ship in the Southern Ocean and getting to NASA. I earned the doctorate.
Listen.
How was that trip south?
Oh, yeah, Southern Ocean in the middle of their winter. It has some challenges. But no, it was beautiful. We only had 3 hours of daylight. We never actually crossed the Antarctic Circle, so we always had the sun did come up and set, but we were there in July, which is the middle of the Southern Ocean winter. But it was beautiful. I mean, there was like whales and seals and penguins and glaciers and mountains coming straight out of the sea, and it was quite an experience to be out there. Beautiful, and it's not as cold. Like when you're on the coast, it's not as cold as you think because the water is 32 degrees ish, so it keeps the temperature pretty mild. I think our coldest day was maybe around 10, so it was reasonable.
What I like, the more you talk, what I hear from whether it's from Elkhorn or Boston or California is don't be afraid, take chances, and take in every opportunity that you have possible in any arena.
Yeah, I think that's great. You have to say yes sometimes, and especially when things are intimidating, like it's easy to be comfortable somewhere and you might be interested in trying something else out. I mean, I remember when I started in research, I did a lot of work with robots, like you'd put them in the ocean and they'd swim around for like a month and gather data. And I was just like, I don't know enough about electronics. Like I can't be in charge of this little robot. Like I don't know any, and then you just have to say like, I'm going to give it a go. And if I can't figure it out, I'll ask for help. And if I still can't figure it out, maybe I won't work with robots anymore.
What a great message though. But
failing is part of it. You have to be ready to fail. You can't be a perfectionist. Like I remember that, like I spent so much time on some analysis one time with my data, and they're like, "Yeah, no, that doesn't work. You got to do it again." And I remember a lab mate saying, the "re" in research stands for redo. Things don't always go right, and you're just so frustrated. You put all this energy into it, and then you have to give it another try. But
Johnny,
you gotta, And if you're doing something you like, but you want to try something new, you can always go back. Like,
we do have a question from a loyal viewer,
Mr.
John Henderson. He happens to be a fellow Rotarian, John.
Oh, okay.
And he wanted to know about the quality of water of Lake Michigan.
Lake Michigan's a really interesting story. Obviously, it's a very large lake, so depending on where you're at, you might have different water quality issues. But in general, right now, Lake Michigan is very, very clear. And the water quality is pretty good because they had the invasive mussels come in. And they've really filtered the water and sucked in a lot of plankton. So the water looks crystal clear in a lot of places, but it's actually harmed the fisheries because so much has been sucked into the mussels. There's not enough around for the little animals to eat, and then the fish to eat the animals. So water quality wise, it's looking pretty good. There are issues, when you have a big rainstorm and you have stuff that ends up in the lake, but it looks beautiful now. But there's been some impacts otherwise, for the ecosystem.
Super interesting. Yeah, very interesting. We could probably go on another.
Could go on for a long time.
We could. Yeah, very interesting. But Chris, we are getting to that time. We're about at that 15-minute mark.
We are. I did want to ask because I think in our little pre-show conversation, I think Bridget or Dr. Seegers had some great advice that she incorporated into her conversations about not being afraid to fail. So if you were to tell any senior right now, what's your number one bit of advice in your journey?
I would say trust yourself. You know, if you think you want to give something a go, you want to take a chance, that you should do it, and be confident that you can pull it off, or you're going to learn something along the way, and it's going to help direct your path. So, you know, go for it.
That's
Just go.
awesome. That's
I
awesome.
think you've inspired me today. I'm not so sure.
I know, I
I'm
feel
going to
good
go out
about
after
me,
this
like-
and just try something new. Like, I don't know. I might get, a skateboard or something on my way home today and just go for it.
Yeah, why not? Just, keep the helmet on.
You've inspired me.
John,
Well,
any shout outs you got?
I don't think I do today specifically, other than like, so far this journey of the Noon Whistle has been really interesting and really inspiring to talk to people in different areas of the country, or alumni or business owners, and just, I guess, thank you for bringing up this conversation to do it, Chris, and to get this thing going. It's been great.
Yeah, and Bridget, thank you for joining us and saying so many things about Elkhorn, and a shout out to all those school board members who are exiting their commitment to the community, and also a shout out to the new ones joining. So important position in our schools, so we continue to shape the minds and ensure success for all kids. And on that note, we'll say thank you, Dr. Seegers, for joining us. We appreciate all your kind words about Elkhorn, and that's it.
All right. Thank you.